Not going to believe this one. Big shakeups are happening inside the FBI, and it looks like bad news for someone many of us thought was finally a good guy on the inside. Dan Bongino. Yeah, the same Dan Bongino who was celebrated when he took the deputy director job. Conservatives cheered, MAGA folks cheered, I cheered, and probably a lot of you did too. It felt like finally somebody on our side had gotten into one of the most powerful positions in Washington. And honestly, Bongino seemed like the perfect guy. He wasn't afraid to speak out. Remember when he said, how do you go back to a normal life after you've seen the things I've seen and you know the things I know? That one line shook Washington. Think about it. What exactly has he seen? What exactly does he know? He didn't spell it out, but clearly it was enough to make some very powerful people uncomfortable. Now, fast forward to this week. The FBI just announced something almost unheard of. They're bringing in Andrew Bailey, the current Missouri Attorney General, who has announced he'll resign in September, and naming him co-deputy director alongside Bongino. That's right. Two people sharing the same job, and from what I can tell, that's a first in FBI history. So let's be real, they didn't bring Bailey in just to help out. A lot of folks are already speculating that this is a move to push Bongino out quietly, to edge him back into the podcasting world, and honestly, it wouldn't shock me. If you know Bongino, you know he doesn't stay quiet. If they force him out, you can bet he's going to be talking on his own show, on someone else's show, wherever he can, and whatever he knows, whatever he's seen, it's going to come out. That's why this is such a big deal. Now, what makes this even more interesting is who they picked to stand next to him. Andrew Bailey. If you don't know him, he's been in the headlines for all the usual conservative fights, challenging student loan forgiveness, blasting federal overreach, and yet the White House is calling him extremely qualified. Think about that. They're bending over backwards to legitimize a guy who most people would never expect to be at the top of the FBI. Why? Because it's not really about Bailey. It's about Bongino. And here's where the Epstein connection comes in. Bongino wouldn't let the case drop. The White House and the mainstream press have been trying to steer public attention away from it for years. Every time it comes up, they scramble to move on. But Bongino? He kept pressing, hinting that there are unanswered questions about what really happened and who was involved. That right there may have been his biggest career mistake. You can push a lot of buttons in Washington, but when you keep reopening a scandal they want closed, you're practically daring the establishment to sideline you. And now it looks like they have. So here's the question. Is this co-deputy arrangement just temporary until they slide Bongino out the door? Or is it some kind of awkward power-sharing experiment that's going to blow up from the inside? Nobody really knows yet, but the writing's on the wall. If Bongino does get forced out, though, I'll say this. He might actually be more dangerous to them outside the FBI than inside it, because once he's free from all the bureaucratic handcuffs, once he can speak openly on his podcast, there's no telling what he'll reveal. And let's be honest, wouldn't you want to hear him unload everything he's been holding back? At the end of the day, this whole thing just feels shady. The timing, the sudden move, the Epstein angle, the White House insisting there's nothing wrong, even as they quietly bring in a replacement. It doesn't add up. So I want to hear from you. Do you think this is the beginning of the end for Dan Bongino inside the FBI? Do you think he's being punished for pressing too hard on sensitive cases? Or is this really just some bizarre coincidence where, for the first time ever, they decided to have two people share the same job? Drop your thoughts in the comments, because I have a feeling this story's only getting started. And trust me, if Bongino really does get pushed out, the fireworks after that are going to make today's headlines look tame.